Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. I'm Jill Bloom with Roofing Contractor, and welcome to the Best of Success podcast show. I am so honored and excited to have with me today, of course, Art Eisner, my editor-in-chief, but we have Ken Kelly. Everybody knows Ken Kelly over the years, but Ken, I don't even know what adjective to even describe how excited I am about this interview with you because you have some huge news. Just tell everybody what's happening.
I'm back. I am buying Kelly Roofing back, or I bought Kelly Roofing, and I'm ready to get back at work.
I mean, I don't think that I've never been more shocked and excited at the same time. But so walk us through, Ken, walk us through the last week or so and what you thought the moment you learned the bank had accepted your offer.
Yeah, so if we back up 2 weeks ago, I'm on the golf course enjoying myself. I get a call from some employees and they were crying. They said, "We think we may be losing our job." And of course, I listened and took in as much information. I said, you know what, bear with me, give me a day or two. I'm going to be there. Let's get the team together and let's talk about what's happening. Because I hadn't been there in 3 years. I didn't know that these things were happening. So I ended up showing up at the office and got the team together. And they basically said, we're kind of shocked. We've been performing extremely well, but all of a sudden they're telling us that they might have to close the doors. And I was like shocked myself. So we walked through why and what led to this. And I said, you know what? I think we can make this work. Let's work together. There's some things we'll need to do. But if we put this action plan in place, I think we could be successful. And basically what I ended up doing was reaching out to the bank and talking about how much they'd be willing to take to reacquire the company. And we put in a formal offer that was accepted. It took us a week to get all the documentation, finish the due diligence, the schedules, the reps, the warranties, all of the things that are necessary to do a full closing to buy a business. And we finished that in 5 days and we closed. So now I am back owning the family business that helps, keep going from 1993 until 2020. Ran it for 30 years. I love the roofing industry. I really didn't leave the industry. I just left the day-to-day contracting part of it. But I couldn't be more proud of the team and what they accomplished. They kind of kept it going. The entire team is coming back. We're ready to serve our customers for another 54 years.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So Ken, I got to ask, when you walked in the door and the employees saw you walk in the door and you said, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna make this work. I'm coming back. I'm gonna figure this out. What were they saying? What was the reaction?
Hugs and tears. It wasn't as much as they were saying as hugs and tears. There were questions, no question. What can we do? What are we allowed to do? What can we know? And I've just been very, very transparent. I said, guys, listen, I'm here. Whether you as employees want to buy the company or if you need my help to do it, I want to make sure you succeed. That is my number one priority right now, is to take care of the employees, because it's very unfair. They're a great team. They have tons of experience and knowledge. It would be an absolute shame to see that go to waste. Number two priority is my customers, whether it's past customers, current customers. They're the ones who made us successful by believing in us. There's no way we can leave them high and dry. And then third, I think about the vendors and the relationships in the industry that really helped to make us successful. And I want to continue those relationships as well. And then fourth, there is a piece of it that's legacy focused, right? The name is on the company and I want to see it continue to succeed. So I'm back. There's probably not much I need to do after the first couple of months of establishing the company and getting it back on its feet, people in the roles, and just kind of getting back to what we were really good at. But after that, I'm confident the team's just going to run this like we always have, and I've got good people around me, so I'll be able to kind of step back from the craziness and just run it the way it should be run.
When did you find out that this was a crisis moment? For the company, as opposed to when things, might be on the downturn? And was it something that was recognizable?
Yeah, I kind of had a sense things weren't going as well as we would have hoped back a couple of months ago. Some key people were leaving, and they were kind of giving me some ideas that they weren't comfortable. And it really wasn't the Kelly brand that was causing a lot of this. It was some other companies that we had acquired, and there's some fraud. You can look it up on Google if you really care. It was just some things that caused this stress on the entire organization. There's actually 4 entities that came together together. There was Kelly originally, and then we acquired 3 companies, and those acquisitions didn't pan out the way we had hoped, and so they put a lot of stress. And the Kelly brand was basically keeping things alive. And once it got to a point where it was more than what Kelly could handle, things really started going down very, very quickly, and it didn't take long. I mean, it was like a week is all it took for the bank to basically say, we don't have the trust in the organization like we used to, and then put in some measures to kind of freeze things, and that's when it really got serious.
Well, no doubt there were a few of us who thought you might hate retirement a little bit more than you let on at the time. Now you're kind of proving that true, but you have this. It seems like you have a drive here. What is, as far as what's happened within the company? Like, will you have to? How much of a culture change has there been, or a shift, back, and will you have to kind of reinstill, things that were working so well for you before?
That's a good question. On the retirement front, I was worried that I would eventually get to a point where I would be sick or injured or worse, or a family member would need me full time, and I would never be able to do some of my bucket list items. So in the last 3 years, my wife and I, we've seen half the world. We've been to 108 or 10 countries or something like that. So more than half the world. We really knocked out a ton of our bucket list items. And so we feel very, very good where we are. I still have 6 trips planned in the next year, so I'll have to see about those. I'm supposed to go to the Galapagos next Friday, but I don't think that's going to work out. But, it's like those type of things. And I loved retirement. And being in the industry, doing some trainings, helping contractors, it allowed me to continue to use my experience. And I felt very good in that hybrid role of giving back, but at the same time enjoying retirement. So where are we here? And what about the culture? I can tell you that the culture slipped because other things became the priority. It was more about meeting numbers. It was more about helping to keep other organizations learning and successful. And we lost sight in some cases of our own organization. And I say ours, I guess, because I own it now. But I really wasn't a part of it that much. But when you stop focusing on the customer and delivering a perfect product and your numbers and your cash flow and those type of things, well, things are going to fall. And that's what started to happen. So culturally, I just have to come in, get rid of some of the bloat. We don't need as many managers as we once had, right? We're going back to a single brand, and we're going to focus on that. That brand may have separate locations, but we're not going to try to maintain all these different names and that kind of stuff. But more importantly, it's what are the things that got us where we are? We're a big EOS company, so we're going to continue to use EOS. We're a big drive by the numbers. We're going to continue to do that. We're a big fan of I intend to. It's a philosophy that was written in a book called It's Your Ship, and it was about this boat that turned around in the Navy from the worst boat in the Navy to the best boat in the Navy in 1 year. And he used this I intend to mentality of basically letting the team members make their own decisions. And at the end of the day, if they make a wrong decision, well, then that's my fault. I didn't train them. I didn't properly give the expectations from the leader standpoint. So I set them up for failure. So really, there's a lot of stuff that's being done behind the scenes right now that I'm just so impressed with. I didn't realize, for instance, we have a girl in the office named Alicia who does some of our partial marketing along with Anna's team at A Squared. And she already wrote a press release. I never told her to do that. She knew that was something that would need to be done. And she goes, Ken, I intended to release this. Are you okay with it? She's using those philosophies. So the team is already getting back into what made us successful. And I know for sure this is going to help in the future. That's
so amazing, Ken. And so speaking of customers, let's just talk about how you're going to handle the customers that are the current customers that are out there that are kind of waiting for things to happen. How does that work? There's definitely some trust to be rebuilt, especially with the community and the customers. How does that fold out?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that the truth will set you free. So we're just going to be very candid. I'm going to go on the tour. I already told customers. They've already received the email. They've received some phone calls. We don't quite know the full production schedule yet because we're still working through that to make sure that our crews are lined up. We're looking at the priorities and so forth. But I'm going to go meet with every one of them. I'm going to tell them this is what happened. And I'm here. I take him back over and we're going to deliver just like we promised. Unfortunately, there was a 2 week pause. And that caused a lot of angst, right? There was uncertainty. There was, people that were upset, and I have to apologize for that. But at the end of the day, I'm going to do what's right. We're going to stand behind those contracts. We're going to make them whole, and we're going to stand behind the roofs that we install.
Well, you're such a great leader and a great communicator. I know that you just making those phone calls already, I'm sure that that message will be spreading like wildfire. But if you had, clearly there's some things that went wrong, but if you had private equity sitting with you in the same room, what would you say to them? What would you share about what they missed?
I would say there's a certain spirit called founder mentality. We see it in Silicon Valley. We see it in some large organizations, big companies. When the founder leaves, the soul or essence or drive of the organization sometimes leaves with it. And in our industry, where we have a ton of variables and it's a constant commitment that we as leaders need to commit to keep the organization going, whether it's weather or crews that didn't show up or materials that weren't delivered or a roof that leaked, damages on the inside, these things happen. And we have the spirit to put our name on things and to do whatever it takes. We get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, we run out there with a raincoat and we're slapping down, sealants on a roof to get people in the dry. We do that. It's hard to find that replacement. So if the founder is no longer with the organization, a lot of times you either need to find someone who does have that spirit and give them some equity and give them that ability to utilize that drive, or you have to find a place for that founder that fits with their work-life balance or whatever, because that's really what's going to keep that culture together and that drive pushing the organization forward.
So it sounds like you had two options when you found that they were closing the doors. It sounds like you had an obituary written for the company and then a business plan. How excited were you that you were able to run with the business plan?
I'm very excited. It's the right thing to do. Could I have just let them close it? Sure. Could they have decided not to accept my offer and do it anyways? Sure. But I think once I got a dialogue going with the bank representative, I think they realized it was in everyone's best interest to let me come in, get me back in the kitchen, and let me put together this amazing meal, because that's what's best for everybody involved. And so that's what we're doing.
And you called it a calling. You said it's a calling to come back and fix this. Tell everybody more about that.
Yeah. So I'm not getting paycheck. I'm not doing it because of any money. I feel like there's an amazing team that has incredible experience that we need to keep them going, and we need to keep them together. There's customers that have trusted us. We need to take care of them. And, we have to do that. And to me, that's right now more than going and working on the golf game, which I was very proud of. I got into the 80s, so I'll get there again. No worries. But, there's a time for that. But right now, this is what I need to do.
Ken, I feel like there's a message to other roofers that have either already sold but could be in that similar situation, perhaps in a different position on the slide, or some that are on the cusp wondering if they should get involved with private equity at all, hearing some of these horror stories. What's your message to them?
Well, let's separate those into those two groups. First, for those who are thinking about selling, I think private equity is an excellent way to exit your business. In most cases, they're very, very good. They understand what needs to be done, and they do it for the right reasons, both for you, for your team, and for the future of the company. I would, however, not go into the deal without being represented professionally with a real mergers and acquisitions expert. It's like going to court without a lawyer, right? They're very good at what they do. And there are some times you could be taken advantage of. So I was very pleased to hear that more and more people are using these M&A advisors to help them with the transactions. If you're thinking about retiring and this is it, you're done, you don't have a family member, or you're not going to sell it to your employees, it's a great exit opportunity, really fantastic. But you have to disconnect from the emotional attachment of the business, because the private equity firms now own your company. They can change the name, they can fire people, they can close it down. And that you need to be okay with that. And if you're going to stay on, you need to be as good of soldier as you are a general. You need to be able to take orders as well as you gave them. because they're going to now be your boss, and you have to be okay with that. And it's a little bit of a transition, but I think most people in the roofing industry have that ability to kind of morph where we need to go. So it's very capable. We're very capable of doing it. Now, for those who are in this position, you've already sold the private equity. You're worried because you probably rolled some of that equity into the new entity. And what I'll do, I'll explain that. If we were to sell the company for $1 million, most of the time private equity firms are going to want you to reinvest in the new company. It shows them that you believe in your own business. So typically they ask for about 25%. So under $1 million sale, in this scenario, $1 million sale, they're going to give you $750,000 upfront in cash. You go invest that, retirement, whatever you want. 250,000 they'll give you in the form of shares in the new company, and if it's worded and done right, you won't have a tax implication on it. So it's also, there's a tax strategy there as well. Well, that 25% now becomes an investment, just like if you were to buy a stock or a piece of real estate. Is that going to appreciate in value or depreciate? If it appreciates, that 250,000 could be worth $500,000 or more. Right? If they double the value of the company, great, you made money on your money. If you didn't, and the business goes out of business and your shares are worth nothing, well, there is a little silver lining in that scenario, because although you didn't make money on your money during the period that they were trying to run the company, you still at least to get to use it as a loss on your taxes to offset gains. So if you had long-term capital gains from selling a piece of property, or if you had stocks that you owned for more than a year, that becomes a capital gain tax that you'd have to pay if you ever sold those. Well, you can use this loss in perpetuity for the rest of your life. It'll just sit there on your tax return. You'll take a little bit each year to offset those gains. Eventually, you will get your money back. Unfortunately, it's not in any appreciated way, and it might take a few years to get it, but you will get it back. So, there's a warning just out there for people. If you're in this situation, try to engage. If you're a silent investor, you're no longer part of the organization, maybe they need the founder mentality back. Maybe it's time for you to come back in. I have a feeling we might see more of this occurring. So, maybe just reach out and see where you could fit in to help rescue and save, because it's a very real thing. They're happy to have that help. They don't want to see it fail either.
Well, with your founder's mentality, Ken, I know things are just going to be amazing again at Kelly Roofing. But where do you see Kelly Roofing in a year? I know it's early to ask this question, but where do you see you guys in 12 to 24 months by now?
Well, we've got a team that needs to be dialed in, so we'll definitely be there by the end of the year. Let's say the next 6 months, we'll be in a position where we'll be totally positive in every way, whether it's EBITDA or profits or debt or whatever. We'll be in a positive cash position, and then 24 months after that, we'll be in a position to where we can start talking about an ESOP for the employees. If we're going to sell it to the employees, maybe they'll stand up and buy it, passing it on to the next generation. That's really what we're looking to do. We're really looking to solidify this so that we're controlling our own destiny.
Would you actually consider selling again?
Not unless I could be a part of it. I think the founder really should stay. And if I was able to write that into the operating agreement, that I have a perpetual board seat and I get to help with the decision-making process, I think that's the better way that it would go. I don't know that I would sell unless I had that opportunity.
Ken, you mentioned you stayed close to the business. I'm wondering if you think it's any more difficult to roof now than it was 3 or 6 years ago. Certainly the environment, the economic environment has changed a little bit, and insurance, so on. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to mention insurance. It's not as big of a deal as it used to be. There's some curbs that are coming through the nation with some new laws and whatnot. Carriers are treating claims much, much differently, and they have the support of legislatures to do it. So the business that we used to benefit from, it's either going to be tougher or maybe even impossible to ever get back to that point. So yes, that is definitely a focus or a strain. But I see that as a positive. I was largely a retail roofer, and the only time I really played in the storm world is when a hurricane came around, and the hurricanes and that whole thing kind of disrupted businesses. So I've been through in my career 6 recessions and 8 major hurricanes. So you want to talk about highs and lows. We just got really good at expanding the company when we needed to and contracting thereafter, because most of the work in our territory was done. We had to wait for the replacement cycle to catch up again 10, 12 years down the road, or we had to wait for another storm. So you kind of go into the doldrums for a little bit, but we got good at that. And I think that's actually positive for business, that you don't have these huge windfalls that make people really, really wealthy, and then they just take the money and go out of business. I think it's really hard to run a company that way. I'd rather see slow, consistent, steady growth, and I think that's better for everyone. So that's the mantra that we're going to go after. We're not going to chase storms. We're not looking for, the payday. We're not going to be millionaires overnight. We're going to run a really good company so that it stays in business and takes care of our customers. And that might be little profit margins, but we're going to make enough so we can continue to reinvest, replace our equipment as needed. And, that's really the secret. So, no, I don't have any, with our reputation and with the team in place, I don't have any worries that we're not going to be successful. That's not as big of an issue. What I've learned from training around the country and meeting a couple thousand contractors is that every market's a little bit different. There are some nuances, and yes, there are some challenges in our industry, but we've gone through challenges before. It's just a problem to solve. And what I love about our industry is it's full of leaders who love solving problems. It's like, give it to me. I'll make it work. I don't worry about this at all. It's a temporary blip. We'll figure it out and we'll move past it very, very quickly.
I love it. Well, Ken, we are so excited to have you back. Welcome back to Kelly Roofing. And what's your official title?
I thought about that. Should it be owner? Should it be former owner? Should it be founder? Should it be family? I think I'm just going to go with president. That's what I've had all these years. So whatever. Titles mean everything. They mean nothing. I don't care what you call me. You know what I mean?
It's your calling. There's no doubt. I saw it in your eyes. I felt it in your passion from the first day we met. Best of success. Just watching you just grow and expand and beyond. And then it's just amazing to watch what's happened in the last week. So congratulations. And I know on behalf of everybody from in the industry, as well as your company, we're honored to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Art.
So well done. If anybody has any questions though about Kelly Roofing, what's your website?
Yeah, it's www.kellyroofing.com. Tons of great information there, and they can always reach out to me personally at ken@kellyroofing.com.
I love it. Sounds great. And if anybody has any questions for us, it is roofingcontractor.com. And while you're there, make sure you follow us on all our social media channels, and so you can stay up to date and all the great breaking news we have, like today with Ken. But most importantly, stay safe and healthy. We can't wait to talk to you soon. Thanks so much, Ken.
Thank you.